There are so many people here that fight every day to make our community better in all sorts of ways, and not just for the Muslim community, but make our entire community better. It was a tough year for those of us who care about bringing people together. From the legislature to the presidential campaign, we are seeing a time of politics where we're focusing on how do we separate who's a real American from who's not. And that is, there's nothing that's more of a betrayal of the virtues of this country than that type of politics of division.
With anti-Muslim legislation and rallies moving forward in many communities, interfaith leaders are also calling for more local efforts.
Every single week, there's radio hosts who bring on people whose sole purpose is to badmouth the religion of Islam or to talk bad about the Muslim community. And I'm talking about very popular, so-called conservative radio hosts. And the practical effect of that is there's a real hatred that's constantly being whipped.
Galloway, executive director of the American Center for Outreach, says people of many faiths are hoping the bridge building in Nashville can be a model for other communities struggling over religious diversity. He showed me a recent ad in the Tennessean newspaper, which was signed by leaders of many different faiths.
No matter what we believe, where we come from, or what our differences might be, together we're better. And it really just says, no matter what else happens across the world, no matter what happens in Tennessee, as Nashville, our values are to be welcoming, and we're going to work together and respect each other.
My name is Zulfat, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. I am the immediate past chair of the American Muslim Advisory Council, an organization that works with Muslims across Tennessee. But tonight, I'm not in front of you as the past chair of AMAC, but as a parent of an 11-year-old. You all know what's been going on in the political climate of our country and the rhetoric that has followed. Unfortunately, this rhetoric had led to a lot of our kids being bullied in schools and a lot of them being made fun of. I want to share with you a personal story. I picked up my daughter about 4 weeks ago from school. As she was getting in the car, a young lady yelled, "Goodbye, Sophia, I hope you're not going to bomb us." After talking to my daughter, I also found out that another kid has also insinuated that she might have a bomb under her jacket. And on another occasion, somebody tried to pull off her headscarf. This is something that I witnessed myself that happened to my child. I've been an advocate for a lot of years, but I've never seen anything like that up close. And I know that for that one incident, there's a lot that are not reported. There are a lot of kids that are going home that are not talking to their parents, and we have a lot of parents that even when the kids say something, they don't know what to do. It doesn't matter whether they're Muslims, immigrants, whatever they look like. Bullying, intimidation, discrimination of any of our kids is something that we all should stand up against. So I'm here tonight and I'm asking you as a mother, as an activist, as a Nashvilleian, as a Tennessean to please sign this resolution and make sure that all our children are protected. Thank you.
Any discussion? It's just the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. And I do appreciate our guests in the audience speaking to this timely issue. And I can only hope and pray that after November, we don't have to, be subjected to that anymore. That's my hope and prayer. So all in favor of passing this resolution? Show of hands. Thank you. Unanimous.
Educators say it's time to take new measures to protect children.
It's a very unsettled time in the country right now, and those of us who are operating in and around public education need to be especially vigilant.
Today, educators and administrators will learn how to let go of certain stereotypes and identify the students who truly have the potential to become active school shooters. Retired Special Agent Pat Villafranca is leading the session.
There is no stereotypical school shooter. We're going to talk about how they run the gamut in age, they run the gamut in race, they run the gamut in whether they were getting good grades or bad grades.
Paul Galloway is the executive director of the American Advisory Muslim Council, and his group organized this event. His children attend school in the area, and he wants all educators to learn what Special Agent Villafranca has to share.
Because we have an expert who knows how to equip people with information, help them be a harder target, then we figured that it's a great community service to offer, to let schools just have a little bit more information on how to protect themselves.
Special Agent Villafranca says every school should have an action plan and know how to respond if the worst happens at their school.
News Channel 9 presents Chattanooga, 1 year later, a special town hall discussion.
What causes someone to do these horrific acts against other people when they've decided that they're going to take their own life in the process if that is necessary? And I think what we come down to is the common denominator of all this is the words of the Quran and the words of the Prophet. I think the fundamental problem, as far as I'm concerned, is people in the mosque here in the United States, the leaders in the mosque, are not nearly vocal enough, standing up publicly and speaking against these issues.
Mr. Galloway, would like to respond?
Yeah, I would love to respond. When we first met Sheriff Hammond, it was in your office, and it was with the president of the Chattanooga Islamic Center.
It was.
And at that point, he had not had any substantive contact with you before. Is that correct? In Nashville, where I live, and the organization I work for, we specialize in bringing law enforcement and Muslims together. Just a month ago, I brought 12 mosque leaders to the FBI in Middle Tennessee, and we had a roundtable discussion. I personally give sermons in the mosques in Nashville, and I address these issues. Our organization, every time there's one of these events, immediately brings the community together to condemn it, and we also invite people to come to our sermons, to come to our mosque, invited or uninvited, so they can see what's being preached. I think that if you deny the fact that there are profiles, behavioral profiles, of people who do mass shootings and who do terrorism, that you're unfairly creating the exact type of rhetoric that Al-Qaeda will use to recruit more people. Because when you're looking at the issue and you're saying it's only the religion of Islam, and the researchers in Orlando are saying that he fits to a T the mass shooter profile, then you're ignoring a major part of the problem, and you're not coming with a comprehensive solution. I think we have to address both sides, and to be fair, we need more partnership and less divisive rhetoric between law enforcement and the Muslim community so trust can be established, and so that people can feel comfortable working together to prevent terrorism.
And Mr. Galloway, I'd like to do a quick follow-up, because we often hear about some of the rhetoric and action that might incite more people to react. But is there any evidence of that? I mean, is there some kind of evidence that says that if a presidential candidate says something, they react, or we adopt policies in a certain way, they react? Or is it just kind of more speculation?
Well, absolutely there's evidence. If you look at the Brexit vote, hate crime skyrocketed immediately after that. You look at the way that one of our presidential candidates is talking about minorities and Muslims in particular. And just last week, in fact, just this morning, a Sikh American is a person from India, wears a turban, has a long beard. His has a horse at a farm, shot execution style. They actually believe it's because people confuse him for being a Muslim. In Chattanooga, in Murfreesboro, about a month ago, a woman was almost run off the road in a hate crime incident that the FBI is now looking at because she was wearing a headscarf, and she was yelled at and told to go back to her home. The funny thing about that is she's a Caucasian American who became Muslim. Where's she going to go? So I think rhetoric definitely can have an impact. And I think it's very important that we as a community say we are all Americans, and not just in the aftermath of something terrible, but all the time. The hit list that you brought up earlier, many Islamic clerics and scholars that are American are on that list. In fact, in Memphis, one of the most preeminent scholars in America, named Yasser Qadhi, has been singled out multiple times by Al-Qaeda and by ISIS to be killed. And when you look at the fact that the vast majority of terrorist organizations' victims are actually Muslims, this just reinforces the need to change the conversation to we collectively and not Muslims against the West, which is, I think, the most important point that I would make today, is that Americans, we're Americans, regardless of our faith, regardless of our racial background.
After horrific attacks like the shooting in Orlando, followers of Islam are left to defend their faith.
We want them to see that we're actually making an effort to publicly say we do not support you, whoever you are that's being radical.
Sam Abwalia and Kalima Aziz Rashada tell me violence displayed by the gunmen in Orlando is opposite the teachings of Islam.
I do not align myself with their thinkings by even entertaining their doctrine or entertaining their presence, because it doesn't even reflect what I stand for.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Samira Islam. What I wanted to say about AMAC is that after attending the conference and being one of the keynote speakers, 2 years back, I always talk about the national community just because I feel like This community is a wonderful example, and AMAC does a wonderful job in setting an example for the rest of the country. The story that I always tell people is that I love that the national community has different massages and different groups that really serve the needs of specific populations that are here, but that AMAC provides a wonderful role of providing an umbrella organization where people can come in together, can unite, and can draw on their strengths to be able to provide a more comprehensive strategy for addressing everyone's needs. So I really appreciate everything that's being done in Nashville. It's very inspiring, and I think AMAC has played such a wonderful role for the rest of the country in showing us how it can be done really well, and having our communities work together, and in bridging a lot of the racial and ethnic divisions that we see throughout the country. So good job, AMAC.
My name is Mayara Nagas. I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding, or ISPU for short. Having heard about the breadth of work that AMAC does, I am truly astounded. I'm astounded at how much they've been able to accomplish. And, you know, I thought maybe there were 10 staff, but knowing how actually small the staff is and how much they've been able to accomplish is incredibly impressive. Not only the quantity, but the quality of their work really has stayed with me. They've been able to address so many issues that are pressing and critical and crucial to address, and they've done it in a way that has built coalition, that has engaged the interfaith community, and that has really made an impact.
My name is Catherine Orsborn, and I direct the Shoulder to Shoulder campaign.
My name is Madiha Hussain, and I'm staff attorney at Muslim Advocate.
I've really appreciated getting to work with AMAC over the last several years, and have loved seeing all of the deep, well-rooted, and well-connected collaborative work they've done in this community to really push forward a message of a Tennessee that is inclusive of all communities here.
I've had the pleasure of working with AMAC for several years as well, and I've always been impressed by the amount of work that they've accomplished here in this community, despite all of the backlash and despite all the different things that they've been challenged with. They've found a way to come together for a common good and common goal towards improving the lives of not only American Muslims, but for all Americans, both here in Tennessee and nationally. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.